So everybody gets excited when a new camera comes out that can do 4K or 8K or 10K or 16K. And you fail to realize that all 4K, 8K, 10K, 16K is not the same. If you go and buy a camera and that camera costs you $300 and it says that it can do whatever the new resolution is that's out, 8K, 4K, 1080p, uh, whatever it is, 16K, and we think because Hollywood and what we see in the theaters is shot in that same 8K or 16K, we assume that, oh wow, this little $300 camera that I have can look as good as Hollywood. It's not the case. And the reason I'm also mentioning that is because even in music, we've been doing this for years, for up on years, decades, like probably centuries. Like, we've been doing this for a long time. Like, anytime we're in the studio, we always record in a higher bit depth and a higher sample rate than what we're going to export in, right? So a lot of people that do music that are beginners, they record in a very they record in the same sample rate and bit depth that they're going to export in, and that's not the way you're supposed to do it. But people are going to argue with you and say that it's totally fine to do that. They're going to say only dogs and deer can hear frequencies above a certain range, and it's more to do than just frequencies. A part of it is frequencies, but another part of it it goes above and beyond that. Now, in music, when you typically you record in a higher sample rate or bit depth, and then when you export it down, you're going to get a clearer, cleaner, sharper image. I mean, sound. Same thing with filming. You're going to get a lot of these cameras, for example, like the Canon R5C. It records in 8.6K, if I'm not mistaken. And it, no matter what, if you're shooting in 4K or no matter what resolution you're recording in, it's always going to record in that higher rate, and then it's downsampled because you have it as 4K. So what I want to explain is that's very different than upsampling. And a lot of people don't realize that. They think that they can just record, like for example, if you record a video in 720p and then you try to convert it or upsample it to like 4K or 8K or 16K, it'll do its best to try to convert it and make it look better, but typically when you do that, it's going to get blurry. It's not going to look as clean and sharp as an original 8K or 4K or even something that's shot in 8.6K and then downsampled to 4K. Like something that's recorded in 8.6K and then downsampled to 8K or 4K is going to look way crisper and cleaner and clearer and more detailed than something that's taken from 720p or 1080p and then upscaled or upsampled. It's no comparison. But there are some cases where we have no choice but to do that. It's kind of like in music, for example. So in music, you take something like a MP3, an MP3 file, let's say 128 kilobytes per second, and then people try to convert that to a wave 16-bit, 1,114 kilobytes per second or something like that. Like, the file will tell you that it is in that higher rate. But if you compare a original wave 1,114 kilobytes per second, I might have those numbers slightly off, but if you compare a wave 16-bit at CD quality compared to a MP3 at 128 kilobytes per second, like, you're gonna hear a total difference. There's more detail there. Like, it's no comparison, you know. And now you can convert like from a wave to from an MP3 to a wave, or you can convert to different files, but you're not really giving it more quality. You know, I had one of my friend, for example, he took an old song that he had that was recorded in 128 kilobytes per second, and he wanted to re-release the song, so he reloaded it back into his music program, and he trying to resample it and upsample it and trying to put some more mixing and mastering on it, and it seems I guess, you know, it came out a little better, but it really, what he was trying to turn it into, it just wouldn't do it. And that's what I'm saying. If I tell everybody to take this example, you can take a movie, for example. I'm gonna give you two examples. You can take a movie, for example. You take a movie that is shot in 720p. Like, let's say you film something in 720p, and then you go and try to convert it to 4K or even 1080p. But let's just say you convert it to 4K or 8K, whatever you want to do, 16K. You convert it, and it's not going to look any different than what it did as 720p. It's still going to look like 720p, but it just like made it bigger. It tried to like stretch the image, or it's gonna look, it's not gonna look as clear as sharp. It's gonna look I would say probably pixelated. But it's the same thing with music. Like, if you take, a lot of people don't believe me when I say you take a 128 kilobyte per second MP3 file and then try to convert it to a wave. They're still hearing the 128 kilobyte per second file, but they don't know that. They assume that it sounds better. That's their own imagination. And so, for example, this is the test that I give them. So, for example, my music program can export as low as, I believe, 32 kilobytes per second in an MP3. So I ran this test, and I tell other people to do it all the time. Export one of the best songs that you have. Export that song into 32 kilobytes per second. Export it out in 32 kilobytes per second. A real good song that you have. And then you're going to listen to it. You're going to hear that it sounds like garbage. And what I want you to do, since y'all believe that you can convert the quality, take that same 32 kilobits per second file, load it back into your music program or into Windows Media Player, whatever you want to do. Load it back up into there. You know, if you got to put it on a CD and then load it back, however you want to do it. Or you can just take the file straight out of the program that was 32 kilobytes per second, load it back up into the program, and then export that 32 kilobyte per second file as a wave 16-bit, which is like 1,114 kilobits per second. You're going to notice that it's still going to, when you look at the properties, it's going to tell you that it isn't in 1,114 kilobits per second, and it's going to tell you that it's in wave format. And when you listen to it, it's still going to sound like the 32 kilobits per second. Like, I don't understand how people don't understand that. Like, it's like this, for example. If you have cake, right? You have a whole cake, and you slice that cake up into slices. Let's say, depending on how many slices you do, determines the, let's say you slice it up into parts, right? And so, let's say you needed more cake, right? There is no way to get more cake. Out of that one cake, you cannot make more cake. You can only make more slices. More slices, that's not more cake. You just have more slices. You just made more slices. So typically that's typically what's going on. You're not making more quality. You're not making more cake. You're not making more. You're just making more slices. It's kind of like, for example, if I had, you know how when you're trying to make something look like it's more, but it's really the same amount. So that's what I'm saying with the K. When you have, like, for example, a JPEG, when you take pictures as a JPEG, and then a JPEG is a compressed file format, which that means it loses quality. Versus you take a raw picture, and a raw picture, it's not watered down. That's basically what a like a MP3. When you lower the quality on an MP3, MP3 was never a file that was based on quality. MP3 was a file that was based on space saving, just like JPEG, JPG, JP. Like the JPEG photo format was really a space saving file made for sharing. If you are trying to edit a picture, you don't edit a JPEG. You take the raw picture and you edit the raw. You take the raw picture and you load that raw picture into your program and you edit the raw. Then you export that as a JPEG. It's the same thing with music. It's the same thing with upsampling and downsampling. You start out with something at a higher quality. It's always best to go lower in quality, going up in quality. You're not gaining any quality. It's you're not gaining any quality. You're not making more cake. If you try, a lot of rookies will try to take a JPEG file, and they try to take that file and edit it. Now, if you have somebody that takes a raw file and edits that, their raw file is gonna look way more professional. It's the same thing in music. It's the same thing with oversampling and downsampling. It's the same thing. If you have a camera that shoots 8.6K and then it downsamples that, to 4K or 8K. Anytime it's downsampling, because it's 8.6K, if it's downsampling to 8K, you got 0.6 extra more. 0.6 more. See what I'm saying? It's the same thing with music. We've been doing this stuff for decades. And I've always tried to explain that to people in the music. And a lot of people they just don't understand it. And, I don't argue with people. I just do what I do. I continue to do my music my way because I don't care to argue with someone about what their music is gonna sound like. It's gonna sound bland. It's gonna sound like a average song. That's what it's gonna sound like. It's gonna sound like an average song. Hollywood is not doing what y'all are doing. I don't care who told you what. I know what Hollywood is doing. I know what the videographers are doing. I'm in school for this. And even before I was in school for it, I was researching stuff left and right. So knowledge is power, man. A lot of the thing that kills us is a lot of us sit up and take instruction from other rookies. Your homeboy and your friend and why are you taking instruction from other rookies? You're never gonna be more than a rookie if you're just taking information from a rookie. Now, I'm not saying that there's not rookies out there that are capable of doing awesome things. I was a rookie at one point in time. I still did some awesome things. I didn't do everything right, but my thing was I was always about advancing. I was always about having the best quality. I didn't sound like the best quality back then, but it was in here. I was eager to learn it. And look where I'm at now. Way way further along now than where I was back then. Everything I was thinking, everything that God put up here, I studied it, I researched it, I was hungry for it. I wasn't just doing this for a season. That's the thing about us. We don't invest in ourselves. I've invested in photography courses. I've invested in filming courses. I've invested in music courses. I've invested in marketing courses. Like, you name it. And a lot of people that I talk to, man, they hurt themselves because they don't want to spend the extra money to learn, or they don't want to take the time to learn. We rather go out and hang out and play and like do things that. How are you gonna be the? You want to be the CEO. You want to have CEO money, but you're not doing the CEO job.